So we just got rumours of a brand new Assassin's Creed movie in 2025. This comes from a fairly credible information leaker, and although to some this is good news, it could spell bad news for others. And I'm gonna get into all the gritty information today. So if you're new to my channel, The Exile, and want to stay up to date with everything Assassin's Creed, consider subscribing. Let's get on with it. So I wouldn't blame you for forgetting this, as it was over 5 years ago at this point, but in 2020, Ubisoft and Netflix announced there would be a TV series for Assassin's Creed coming in the near future. Now, years and years passed and we heard absolutely nothing, radio silence. And most recently, it's got to the point where within the Assassin's Creed community, it's sort of widely accepted that this Assassin's Creed Netflix show isn't really coming. There has been in the past inside information that the show has been passed between different directors, and it just seems like it's in Netflix limbo. And here's where today's leak comes in. According to a leaker called Danielle Richtman, who has gained credibility from leaking movies such as new Marvel movies, this guy claims that there is a brand new Assassin's Creed movie in the works, not in association with Netflix, and this is one of the reasons why the Netflix show has been put on the back burner for so long. Now, we don't have a ton of information on actors, directors, anything like that. This Daniel guy, the leaker, has said that it's in very early stages of development. So that means, have they even found a director yet? And it also means they haven't even thought about casting yet. So yeah, very early stages. We don't even know where the story's going to go, even if a story has been outlined for this movie. All we know, according to this Daniel Richtman's Patreon page, yes, he locked it behind a paywall, we're going to get an Assassin's Creed movie, and it's coming soon at some point, and it has potentially put this Netflix show on the back burner. And well, that's all really. So I do want to speculate on what they could do for this movie. If a needle in a haystack moment does occur and somebody who does want to work on a story for this movie comes across this video, yes, unlikely, but if it happens, I want to give my thoughts on what I think would be good for this movie. Firstly, to succeed as its own thing. Secondly, to tell a good Assassin's Creed story. This is coming from me, someone who's grown up with the Assassin's Creed series their whole life, has a whole YouTube channel dedicated to it, and also loves movies. I'm a big movie buff. I go to watch the movies every single week, multiple times a week. So I feel like I've got a good perspective here. Now, before we get into that though, I do just have to preface to you guys, as much as this Daniel Richtman seems credible and seems to have got a lot of movie leaks correct in the past, that's not to say what he's saying here for the Assassin's Creed movie is 100% legit. And when this is a rumor coming from word of mouth, you always have to take it with a grain of salt because everything's in flux, so you don't know where things are going until you get that official confirmation, but it's interesting to know. With that said, let's talk about what we could see in an Assassin's Creed movie. Oh yeah, and also if you are enjoying this video so far, consider pressing the like button, that'll help me out. Okay, moving on. So firstly, we need to look at where the first Assassin's Creed movie went wrong. A lot of people might enjoy that film, but as a commercial success or failure, well, it was a failure. I think a lot of problems people had with the movie was that the dialogue was actually quite rigid, which of course left the acting to feel quite rigid. Also, it was just ripping off Desmond's story and just putting that story onto another character. It didn't feel organic. To me at least, and to a lot of AC fans, it felt like a contrived movie that took a great story and just didn't do it justice. So I think you've got two options really. In another Assassin's Creed movie, you can create another character again and create its own unique story, or you can tell the story from the video games. So option number one, create a new story. If you're going to do that, don't do the same thing that the first movie did. Don't rip off Desmond's story with a new character and don't do it as much justice as it could have been done. Create a new character, yes, and create a unique situation, a unique story. If there is going to be modern day in the Assassin's Creed movie story, the directors and writers must understand why modern day exists in Assassin's Creed, or at least why it used to have meaning. The story of the modern day protagonist was there to directly parallel with the ancestor story. As one character learns, the other character learns. Their stories are tied together across millennia. Eventually, it all comes together with these two characters having great character development that inherently link in with one another. You can't have one without the other sort of thing. Later games in the Assassin's Creed series strayed away from this story structure, and I do think it was to the detriment of the modern day. Again, I think modern day works best when you directly parallel the modern day character with the historical ancestor. Also, make sure that historical character is the modern day's ancestor. It leads in perfectly with tying them together across the ages. Okay, now there's the second option, where the directors and writers decide they're going to just copy the Desmond story and maybe the Ezio story, right? Just as a pure Assassin's Creed fan who regards the Desmond and Ezio sort of storyline as just one of the best writing in video games and just one of the best stories in video games, that scares me because I worry, can they do it justice? Can they do Ezio as a character justice? Can they do Desmond as a character justice? And can they do that story arc justice? You've got to think the story of AC1 through 3 worked perfectly as an art form in video games because the way the story is with the character going into the animus and having this puppeteering system to control these memories, or at least to feel like they're controlling these memories, it works in with the player playing the game, controlling the characters. It's a very interactive element. A lot of that stuff can get lost in movie, and I think that's why a lot of video game movie adaptations don't do well, because they're not understanding that divide, that split between video game storytelling and movie storytelling. I mean, also, as well as that, it's usually a cash grab. You know, this game's doing well, let's make a movie out of it. Look at the Uncharted movie for that. But a good example of a video game movie adaptation, or at least TV series adaptation, would be The Last of Us. They took deviations where they felt necessary, but in a lot of ways, it's very, very close to the game's story, and I think it works perfectly. They take artistic judgments where the story deviates, but it still respects that source material. That's another big thing. Respect the source material. If you don't want to respect the source material, then don't do the Assassin's Creed IP. Do your own IP, and that's completely fine. But if you want to take a direct story that already exists, again, respect that source material. Don't fill the film with meaningless action. Everything in the older Assassin's Creed games were very deliberate. You don't fight and you don't kill for the sake of it. It's the reason you do it. It's the philosophy behind the fight that you fight. So really focus in on that, I think. And if you really don't want to parallel the modern day with the historical story, maybe just keep it historical. There's nothing wrong with doing that. We do have good Assassin's Creed games that pretty much just focus on the historical aspect. You know, there's nothing wrong with honing in on one thing and perfecting it. But that being said, I do not think that Ezio's story could be done justice if it didn't parallel with Desmond. It was written to parallel Desmond. So if you take one thing out of it, you're completely missing the point of Ezio's character and the way he was written in the first place. And then you might think as a director, oh, well then we'll just write Ezio differently. And that's a big problem. People will get very angry. There's a reason the Fallout TV show is so good, is because it respects the source material, even with new characters. It understands that universe, that world, and the characters in it that might not be in the show, but the characters that built that series, it respects that and it doesn't try to change it. As much as I did really like season 1 of The Witcher, and I really do like the actors in the show, the writing in season 2 and 3 completely tarnishes the original story, and it's not like it even writes it better, it writes it objectively worse. So no matter how much you think your story might be better than the original, and that's fair enough if that's your opinion, people aren't going to agree. So if you want a genuinely commercially successful Assassin's Creed movie, again, stick to that source material or tell a new story that respects the source material of that established universe. I think that's pretty much all of my advice. If I keep going, I'm going to start rambling and repeating myself. I would also say to any potential directors or story writers out there that somehow might stumble across this video, which is, again, very unlikely. Regardless of whether you're a gamer or not, play the games, especially AC 1 through 3. Really delve into the story, the psyche of the characters, the meaning behind the story. I think they're really masterfully written, and I think if you are a creative, then you just do enjoy these stories for what they are. Definitely play AC 1 through 3. So that would be AC 1, AC 2, AC Brotherhood, AC Revelations, and then Assassin's Creed 3. Yes, 3 does not come after 2. Honorable mentions, AC Black Flag, AC Origins, maybe a little bit of Unity. I wouldn't say Unity for the story, but I'd say for the way the characters act Sect, it's very much more cinematic. It feels more like a movie. And I think if you can take that sort of dialogue when it comes to acting and the way the characters talk to each other, but keep it on the level of writing of the older games, yeah, I think you got something there. So yeah, hoping for the best. What do you guys think though? Do you agree with me? Do you disagree? What's your opinion on this potential leak rumor? Is it even real? Again, it seems real, but we've got to take it with a grain of salt. And what would be your advice for the directors and writers? Let us know in the comments. If there's a chance somebody might ever see this, then they can read the comments and get some even more better advice. I love you guys. May the Father of Understanding guide us. Subscribe if you're new to this channel. I will see you soon. Goodbye.